Hi, this is Keeper, and welcome to On Air. Today we have special guest Janine Avila, former Vice President of Oxyfresh in 2110, and she's here to discuss women in the boardroom. Why is it, with 85% of the sales force being women, less than 25% of women are in the executive boardrooms here in direct selling? She's here to discuss what women need to do, but more importantly, the shifting mindset that men have to have in order to recognize women and understand the value, the extreme value that they bring to the boardroom and the overall sales force. As we talk with Janine Avila here on Air.
When my mother used to sell Princess House.
Joined them way that night.
Norma siempre vendía cosas de Avon.
Oh, it must have been around 1935.
But those knives were amazing.
The one lady's name was Mary Kay, and I said, oh, cosmetics will never sell on Party Plan.
Was a single mom and created these hair care products for black women and became the first self-made millionaire in the United States. I just think that's extraordinary.
Hello everyone and welcome back to On Air. Today we have a very special guest, Janine Avila, who is going to be talking about an issue that's very dear to my heart and one that I constantly am talking about, and that's the women in the boardroom. As most of you know, last year, 2011, Direct Selling Live did a special report on women in the boardroom where we found in looking at the executive movements in direct selling news, that's probably the only place you can get the information to kind of gauge what's going on. We found that of all the executive movement that took place, almost 77% of all the promotions, be it lateral or up and down vertical, all went to men. And that left about 23 to 24% for women, which is not a good thing. When you look at 80 to 85% of distributors on the field are women. So we have, as I said, our very special guest, someone who knows all about this, Janine Avila, who at one point was one of the top distributors in the world for Tupperware. She's been a featured speaker on for the DSA, Real Savvy Success, Direct Selling Women's Alliance, the SWA, WT Powers, and many, many more that she has spoken at. She is currently in the new movie Forward, the network marketing movie that is just storming through the entire direct selling industry. I recommend everyone buy and watch this movie. It will do wonders for your understanding of direct selling and wonders for recruiting as well. Her history has been told in Guerrilla Multi-Level Marketing, that particular book, and her claim to fame, which I think is pretty funny, and her claim to fame is she is a single mom, or was a single mom, I don't know, she still might be, a single mom with 7 kids, 5 natural, and she had the audacity, the gall to adopt 2 teenagers from a group home. And so one of the reasons, as I said, that we have her here is because she was also the Vice President for Oxyfresh in 2110. Janine, welcome, and it is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here. I've been really looking forward to this.
Well, I'm hoping that we make this pleasurable for you. I'm almost certain that that's a given, considering the topic and your background. Did I miss anything in your introduction, first of all?
You did not. You nailed some pretty good. Thank you.
Well, I only went with what you sent me, so all I had to do was read the copy. Last week, you and I got to speaking for the first time, and we had an absolutely wonderful conversation because initially we were going to talk about the movie Forward, which has just been doing fantastic for direct selling. It was just came out of the nationwide release on December 1st, and I do want to talk about that briefly. So let's just talk about that really, really quick, because next week we're going to have you on to talk more about it. But if you can, just kind of briefly describe what is Forward, the network marketing movie.
Well, you know, it was really interesting. I got a call from the creators of the movie Forward, and they had contacted the Direct Selling Association, and they referred them to me. And they were putting this project together to actually forward direct selling out in the world, because they were concerned. Ike Allen, one of the producers, mother had been in direct selling, and he remembered how people had such a misunderstanding about what our industry really is, and he knew what it was, and he always wanted to contribute somehow to furthering the industry. And he said, what they said to me on the phone, in the same way that the movie Super Size Me enlightened people to the dangers of fast food and the trend that were taking place, this would be a more positive way to show people an industry they don't really understand. People understand franchising and retail sales and small business traditionally, but it was such a misunderstood industry. So what he was looking for were people who had had success in the industry, and so the industry had contributed to their life, and they had also contributed back to the industry. So he'd collected a group of people to interview and really educate people kind of in a way that hadn't been done before about what our industry is and can do for people.
You know, how you describe the process of bringing a number of people from, I imagine, from what I was able to see, you have your superstars, you have your pin level, you have some people who are relatively new, and it kind of reminded me of the DSWA's project a couple of years ago called Build It Big, which I was a part of, not only the book but the DVD. You know, if I could just kind of segue here and really get into our topic for today, women in the boardroom. Your experience is going to lend a tremendous amount to this conversation and hopefully educate and elevate the conversation as well. Direct selling has been around for about 150 years, since the 1950s, right around the time Southwestern Company started, 1886. Avon came on the scene, and then you had a number of other companies come around. And during that time, Janine, hundreds of millions of people have in some way or another been touched by direct selling. But the majority of distributors have been women. Women are they're just absolutely fantastic at doing the business. I think it has more to do with the relationship aspect of it. You're much better at it than men, in my opinion. Your experience in the boardroom, and not necessarily to put the focus on Oxyfresh, because you were there as, if I recall, vice president in that capacity for what, 5 to 7 years?
About 7 years.
What was it like? Because you also mentioned that you were probably the only woman in that executive boardroom. And if you can kind of tell us what that experience was like, and what is the big issue? Why is it more women when you look at 85% of the field force being women? Why are they getting such little play in the boardroom?
Well, you know, I have some pretty strong feelings about it. But just to be clear, at Oxyfresh, there also, I was not the only woman. Melissa Gobranson is there, vice president. When I was in Dallas at Royal Body Care, that's where I really was, you know, they're kind of in good old boy country and the only woman in the boardroom all the time. So that's where I say when I shattered the glass ceiling there, I got the shards in my head because it was a little tougher. But one of the things it's like is it's a constant, I guess kind of an intellectual game that I've always having to challenge myself, because I have to figure out how to get heard and express the opinions of women, but not just women. See, women are natural nurturers and relationship builders, and we're used to being caretakers. That's the way we're wired. That's our role. So it's great in network marketing in the field, but the problem that you're very aware of is there are very few women in the boardroom. So you have to figure out how to be a woman and work with men, but not become one of them. And that's my challenge. So
it wasn't so much the Oxyfresh experience. You said it was Royal Body Care?
Exactly.
Okay. So we just want to make that very, very clear. We're not talking about Oxyfresh because they had more than one woman in their boardroom. The challenge for men in accepting women in the boardroom, what is the issue there? You've got almost 85% of distributors on the field, and yet women, and in my opinion, there should be so many more of them in the boardroom. Last year we did a survey where we asked a number of women in what their perception was on this topic, and a couple of them, only a couple, were pretty put off by it because they said, well, in our company we have so many women. Well, that might be true in your company, but that is not the norm. How is it that so many women could be on the field and yet so little representation in the boardroom? What is stopping that process?
Well, in my opinion, there's two things that stop it. Oftentimes, you've got a male-run company because they see the value and the income earning potential of a network marketing or direct selling business. They see it. But I don't care how anybody wants to argue. Men and women are wired differently, and we can work on things so that we can build a strength, we can build our feminine side or build our masculine side. But what I've experienced in watching some women where they try to get involved at corporate and they fail, or they can't get the positions, is they fail to take the business as seriously as men do. And when you're trying to earn like a man and work with a man, you have to understand that some of the things that build the business in the field, women, we think like a river, it all runs together. Men are more compartmentalized. So when I see a woman just coming and with too much talking and too much storytelling in the boardroom, a lot of men don't want to hear it. They're very time concerned. They want dollars and cents more than they want feelings. So I think that's part of the problem, is that basically the men don't want to hear some of the stories that go along with why you should or shouldn't do some of the decisions that are being made at corporate. I think where I was able to succeed was I studied enough about how to communicate with men, the differences between men and women, conversation styles, because it mattered to me that this industry was successful for women and that women could prosper and that I could be a voice, not just for women, but for men. Men need the female touch in corporate.
Right.
They need it there, and I know you know that, but a lot of times they don't. There's plenty of male representation, but oftentimes, and I've had men tell you, I got letters that they've written me that said they worked in the boardroom with me and that my female touch was what kept them from making a mistake. But women have to learn how to present to men because it isn't the same.
Well, I think there's a two-way street there. It's not just women learning how to relate to men, but men learning how to relate with women. And my issue is this. Women are the ones really building the business. Men can sit in the boardroom all they want, and they can dictate and predict and manipulate things from the boardroom. But the business is built on the ground, and that's where women are just extremely dominant. I happen to think that even though there might be some differences in how we think, when it comes to the needs of your family, the needs of your future, the needs of you as an individual, I think men and women are a lot closer than most of us care to admit. Because when you need money, it doesn't make any difference what sex you are. If you're male or female, you've got to go get it done. I think men tend to be more aggressive, and from a societal standpoint, just the way we've been taught, men have been taught that you have to run the company, and women, I don't really want to get into the stereotype with this, but women need to go take care of the kids and stay in the kitchen. I am so against that mindset. It doesn't make any sense to me. When we come back, because we're going to continue this conversation, I want to ask you, if more women were in the boardrooms in direct selling, what would direct selling look like today when we come back?
Okay. I'm excited.
Okay, welcome back to On Air, as we have our special guest, Janine Avila, who is talking about the issue of women in the boardroom, where you have 85% of the field force women and yet less than 25% are in the boardroom. Janine, welcome to On Air.
Thank you.
We're going to get into if more women were in the boardroom, what would direct selling look like today and hopefully tomorrow? I think we could get into more social issues. We would be more involved. We would have a much greater outreach program than what we have today. I think the overall marketing look and feel would be very, very different. I think it'd be a lot more effective. What do you think?
Oh, I know that, absolutely. From my experience both in the field and corporate and working with men and women, I definitely see a benefit.
Mm-hmm. If have you ever had any experiences in a boardroom where you've had to really just come to battle for someone or a particular group where you saw, men doing some things that just didn't work for you?
Yeah, actually, it happens quite a bit, and because I've had several experiences, one that comes to mind when you say go to battle was that, for me, I understand what this industry is when it's your livelihood and it's the way you support your family and pay your mortgage and your name and your reputation's on it from having been in the field. When I went into the boardroom at corporate, I remember specifically several instances at two different companies, and I want to be 100% clear. I'm not talking about Oxyfresh or 21TEN here. These were a couple of other companies.
Right.
But it happened at both where there were decisions being made based on a field report where they were wanting to cut a distributor's check and kick them out of the company based on just some very little research, I guess. So I found myself going to battle saying, wait a minute, we have to look at the whole picture, kind of almost like a mom would in talking to a dad about disciplining a child perhaps too harshly without enough thought. And that's the kind of nurturing and relationship and looking at the whole picture and the whole person that the female perspective can bring. And I was actually able to make a difference for people, and also for the men learned from that, and they told me afterwards. But it was because I was willing to sort of go to the mat for it, and I remember being the only one, Keeper, saying, wait a minute, you guys, I do not agree. We have to really look at this and research this whole thing. In our industry, we have people who maybe don't really understand how our industry works. And we have to say, did they know the rules? Would it be better to really educate them, give them a second chance, and then if they do it again, take action?
Let me ask you this. This is a great segue then, and just to get back to the first question for this segment. If you had more women in the boardroom, what would direct selling look like today in your opinion?
Well, I think it would be a lot more understood, if you will. People would really have a better opinion. Oftentimes, I believe, a lot of the bad rap we get out here in the industry is because somebody has a bad experience. Oftentimes, that bad experience is a direct result of a knee-jerk reaction or a rash decision made in the boardroom, and somebody gets hurt. And it can be as simple as somebody in the boardroom decides to change the catalog and doesn't allow the field enough notice, and people end up with a large inventory of old materials.
Okay.
Okay, it seems like a small thing, but it isn't, because then they see it as the company changed their mind, they left me, I lost money. And they go around and talk about it. Mm-hmm. Women are more feeling, nurturing. We're going to think about all aspects and how people feel about things so that they have a good experience and talk about it in a greater light out there in the field.
Let me ask you this. You haven't been an executive for a number of years. I imagine you've spoken with a number of other female executives in direct selling, other direct selling companies. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. That's one of my favorite things about going to events, is getting able to talk to other women.
Okay, well, with that in mind, what are some of the things that really are just irksome to women? I'm just guessing that you guys have had, some of these off-the-cuff discussions about what is going on. What are some of the, the issues that when you guys get together, you say, why are these guys acting like this? Why do they constantly do this when they should be doing that?
Well, one of the main things is we have to fight so hard to be taken seriously. We have to, I think, work almost twice as hard, because oftentimes it's like you're the token girl, and that's how it feels. So you have to get in there, and it's a fact sometimes, but once you get in there, it's like, I'll take that. If I have to be the token woman to get in, then I'm going to prove myself, but you have to work harder, and especially when it comes to numbers and to talking about profits and growth and ideas. Oftentimes I've seen men think that my ideas are based on something for women, or they just assume that, or they're based on feelings rather than facts and numbers, and that I haven't done my homework. And I have.
They're based on your shopping list for the week.
Exactly, that kind of thinking. That's what's irritating.
So the issue is just still not being taken seriously. You just said something that I thought was very enlightening, and that was being the token. When I think about this issue, you know, you're talking about being the token female in the boardroom, and of course the history of just business are, you know, you've got token racial individuals too, just so the company can look as though it is really diverse. It's really about equal opportunity. But if you're still having to fight the stereotype that I am a figurehead, I'm just a token individual, how do women companies work better? Women companies meaning those that have a lot more women in the boardroom as compared to men, or a company that was started by a woman, do those tend to work better?
Personally, I think they work better when you have a really good balance and an owner, be it a male or a female, that has people in the boardroom based on their sense of fairness, their knowledge, their experience, and their understanding of the business, rather than because they're a man or because they're a woman or because they were successful in a certain other area.
Okay.
Those are the best run companies for me, when people have the true heart of the distributor in mind, and they recruit and hunt and hire for people that can best serve their company based on that company's product and style and needs and culture. That's when I see a company run best.
Well, it sounds like, as we get ready to wrap this up, just a couple of minutes here, it sounds like Oxyfresh has a pretty good handle on that. So, we aren't talking about them in this conversation, and I'm happy to hear, because I like what Oxyfresh is, what they're all about. If you were to give one bit of advice to men that are looking at women from the executive lens, it's something that could really help them, and say, open up your mind to this, and you will probably find this to be true, what would that be?
I think it's to really look for women that have experience in the field, and also to be open-minded that when you have a woman in your boardroom, you're going to have somebody who has intuition and loyalty and can see some things that you won't be able to see, so it's an added strength. Right. I remember listening to Zig Ziglar once saying how he always has a woman because women have really good intuition about people, and he felt that he didn't. And he said he had a woman that he trusted, and he always had her in the boardroom when he was hiring, and he'd just look at her because whether she shook her head yes or no, he knew to listen to her. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of something, an added benefit you get, is that women can see and hear some things sometimes that men can't see. For the most part, and that's a huge plus. Their life experience is very different, and so there's so much value there, and this is just added value to the company. Janine, let me ask you this. From your own personal business, do you have anything that you would like people to know about, book, website, anything that you would like to say, come and, get to know me a little better? You are a speaker, as we talked about up front. Any, like I said, book or website information that we can put up for you? I do. I have a speaking and coaching business that I do because I love to help people go forward, and it helps us all. It's JanineAvila.com, and I've got, some products on there and things if people are interested in. One of my products, Janine Avila's Success Formula, is a huge time management program for how to work from home, and I felt strongly about that because when I got started, I didn't know how to work from home, and I made a lot of mistakes and wasted a lot of time. But if they can go to my website, JanineAvila.com, or I'm on Facebook, Janine Avila, Twitter, those things. If you come and friend me or like me on Facebook, I'd love to connect and offer any insights or help in any way I can. And I really appreciate you having me on this show. It's been fun.
If someone wants to hire you as a speaker,
yes,
what do they do?
Go to JanineAvila.com. And there's a little button they can press and an email and sign up for information, and we'll reach out and contact them. And my 800 number's on there, and I've got a hot dog assistant, Laura, who I think you had experience with. She's very efficient. And Laura
I
will
think
get
she'd
right
be
back.
great in the boardroom.
She is.
She's consistent, that's for sure.
She is.
Janine, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. We're looking forward to having you on in the next week or so to talk more about the movie Forward, the network marketing movie. It is a brilliant movie. I've seen quite a bit of it. I absolutely enjoy it. I think it's a great, great addition to anyone's prospecting toolkit. So thanks again for coming on to On Air. Have a fantastic week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Welcome back to On Air. We would certainly like to thank Janine Avila for coming by and talking about this major issue of women in the boardroom. I cannot stress it enough that this is such a major issue and really needs to be talked about more and more and more in direct selling. 85% of all people on the field are women, and they are just building the business in ways that men never could, and oftentimes have never really had an interest in doing. And yet I think their hands-on style, their ability to relate to people and not always think about the money is really what has made direct selling an absolutely marvelous business. Women can be so incredibly effective and absolutely fantastic in the boardroom. I think the mindset that they are only here for the relationships and men are only about the business is one we really need to get away from. It doesn't make any sense. Women are just as capable as men always have been. One of the things that I thought was interesting was the stereotype, the token issue or comment that Janine talked about. We've had a number of those issues, certainly here in the United States, when it comes to race, when it comes to religion, when it comes to sexuality, and certainly when it comes to gender. These issues do not belong in direct selling. And I would hope that our associations from the MLMIA, the Direct Selling Women's Alliance, DSWA, and the DSA would focus more on this and get companies to realize you cannot have the majority of the sales force be one gender and be represented in such a minuscule way in the boardroom. It's bad for business and it's bad for our industry because it does not say everyone is welcome at every level in direct selling. Have a great day, and we'll be with you next week as we talk more about the opening of Direct Selling Live Politics, which launched this past Tuesday. It has already hit the ground running and people are so engaged in it. Have a great, great day.